I stood at the threshold of my childhood home, the sunset bleeding orange over the horizon, casting long shadows that seemed to reach for me. It had been years spent in the dark, wrestling with nightmares I had only whispered to myself. The laughter of my family still echoed in my mind, mocking and scathing, the words like stones thrown at a fragile glass. Delusional, they called me. Obsessed. I had lost everything for my truth. I had been a whistleblower, revealing the horrifying presence of diseased rodents lurking within the city's archives. For that, I was cast out, my name dragged through the mud. My mother looked up from her knitting, her brows furrowed in disbelief, as though she couldn't reconcile the shadowy figure before her with the timid child she'd driven away. My father stood behind her, his face pale, a ghost of the man who had once ridiculed my dreams. They had despised the way I turned to abandoned buildings, tracing unnatural rodent migrations, a pursuit they labeled vermin paranoia. I had become an expert, known for exposing the hidden horrors that my family had refused to acknowledge. "You shouldn't have come back," my mother muttered, her voice trembling. I could feel the weight of her shame pressing down upon me. But as the door swung shut behind me, sealing me in, I felt the thrill of power surge through me. "You're going to want to sit down," I said coolly, a grin creeping across my face that felt both foreign and exhilarating. They exchanged nervous glances, suspicion tainting the air. They didn't yet know the horrors I bore, the stories of the hive-mind legacy I had unearthed, the terrifying truth of the vermin that followed me like a shadow. "Please," my father said, a hint of disdain lacing his tone. "You can't honestly expect us to take your delusions seriously now, can you?" But the moment shifted, a breeze sweeping through the room as if the house itself exhaled a warning. The light flickered violently, casting eerie shadows across the walls, and I leaned in, my heart racing with a mixture of fear and vindication. I'm not delusional. I'm a warning. Then it happened. The first rat scuttled across the floor, its beady eyes glimmering with unnatural intelligence. My parents gasped, recoiling in horror. I watched them flinch, relishing the moment as the darkness I had uncovered poured through the cracks of their disbelief. I had brought the manifestations of my work home, and they were no longer just shadows lurking in abandoned buildings. They were here. More began to swarm, their bodies forming a writhing mass, a symphony of fur and filth. "They're not just vermin," I whispered, my voice low and throaty. "They are messengers of a legacy that thrived beneath our very cities, a hive-mind entity that knows our fears, our sins." I took a step closer, and my parents cowered against the wall, their faces awash with a blend of horror and realization. They had refused to see what I had seen. Their laughter had been a shield against the truth, one that had now cracked under the weight of my revelation. I was no longer the joke. I was the reckoning. "Do you remember the stories?" I asked, my voice trembling with something between rage and exhilaration. "The midnight tales of curses lurking in the forgotten corners of this city? The whispered warnings about vermin that would consume the soul? That was not myth. History, one I dared to uncover." The room pulsed with the energy of the swarm, the rats now pouring from the shadows in an unrelenting tide, their chittering a haunting chorus that echoed my very thoughts. My parents screamed, their voices mingling with the fevered rustle of vermin. I felt the rush of adrenaline as I finally unleashed the truth, the power coursing through my veins. I was no longer at the mercy of their ridicule. I was the master of my own horror. I had brought this upon them, not from malice, but from the need to expose the dark legacy they had shunned. As cold, clawed feet began to swarm over the floorboards, I relished the moment they finally understood. Their eyes, wide with fear, met mine, a silent acknowledgement of my transformation, the realization that I had become everything they once mocked. "Please," my father whimpered, his voice breaking, "forgive us. We were wrong." "Wrong?" I echoed, my voice a chilling whisper. "You were blind, and now you will see." With that, I turned, letting the swarm envelop me, feeling them meld into my skin, sharing with me their ancient wisdom and horrors. I could feel the pulsing energy of the hive mind, the weight of knowledge that was both a curse and a triumph. The last sound I heard was their desperate cries being swallowed by the darkness. The once familiar walls of my home, now a twisted landscape of shadows and vermin. As I stepped out into the night, the cool air wrapped around me like a cloak. I was no longer an outcast. I was reborn. I turned to look back, the glow of the city casting a haunting sheen over the echoes of my past. I had emerged from the depths with a chilling truth that would never be buried. The horror was real, a living legacy, and it thrived in the shadows of disbelief. I was a warning, and I savored every moment of it. The night embraced me, and with it the whisper of the vermin, the legacy of what my family had cursed for so long, now surged through my blood like a dark crown, undeniable and eternal.